Heat wave of the summer. It's about 28, 29 degrees, but the humidity's high. It's supposed to get a thunderstorm this afternoon. Well, I got quite a bit done today. It's amazing how much of a mess you have to make to clean up. I don't know how that works, but it just kind of works like that. Alright, so I'm on a bit of an anti-feminism kick today, and I figured, well, why not make a couple of videos on it? Never a topic that gets dull, right? Just kind of show you some of the stuff I'm up to here. Sparks along, look at the grass hanging out of it. It's like, it was cutting out fairly okay, and then it just died. I got most of the grass cut. Haven't cut it in about 3 weeks, finally got the darn thing going again. Found the old cement mixer. I got to pile up my wood close to the shed here. I'll get into the feminism thing in a minute. But, you know, this will probably become relative into the video. So this is what I did today. And I still got a lawnmower deck. There's a lawnmower deck growing out of the ground there. I don't know who planted it, but it's growing out of the ground. Went to these freaking bastard-ass, freaking spiky briar brushes. God, I hate those. Plus, I got some shingles. I don't know, the shingles, I guess, are off the roof. I've got to fix that roof. Got all this stuff to do. I got to clean all this out, and then I got to pile all that wood here. Not all of it, but, you know, this is where I want to start so I can move it. And my shed's falling apart. What the hell? I guess I got to fix that too. All right, but anyway, so that's been my day. That's you know, a day of a typical man, I guess. Okay, so you know how feminism kind of fails women. It really does, and again, it's I know the issue's kind of beaten to death, but there's always so much more that can be said about it. And again, I more want to, rather than just complaining what the problems are, more pose kind of like solutions and stuff. And like anything, I mean, life has its problems. I say no more. Sparta. I call that lawnmower Sparta. It's a good grass killing machine when it starts. But, okay, yeah, so life has its problems, and you got to deal with that. But the thing is, okay, we know what most of the problems are with feminism, so how do you fix it? Like, you know, because it has failed women, too. It's failed men, it's failed women, failed children, failed the family, failed the nation. It really doesn't work. Some think it is working because they're bit beneficiaries right now, but they're not benefiting what they could have in its place. It could be something so much better. So anyway, nice and cool in here. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse because again, there's so many other channels out there that, you know, cover the batshit craziness of third wave feminism so much better. So rather than going over how it's failed the women and why they should kind of just ditch it. Well, what would they be ditching it for? Well, it's going to be a two-step between men and women. I've always said that. I'm always going to say that. And I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly because of the way I grew up. I grew up with a very loving family. Mom, dad, brother, sister. And between the siblings, yeah, okay, you rival from time to time, but that's okay. You grow out of it and you actually learn to love your siblings even more because of the stable mom and dad that were your role models, right? And I'm blessed to have had that. That type of thing. That said, I knew a lot of people that didn't have that. Now, when I was going to school, there was a lot of kids that came from troubled homes that went to school with me. And even at that, the ones that came to school, and studies have shown this too, that came to school that were, okay, their mom and dads were, you know, kind of on the rocks a bit with the relationship. Yeah, the kids suffered, but they were still better off than the single-parent families. Because they still had two parents, you know, overly competing for their affection, right? So, which had its, you know, drawbacks too. I'm not saying there wasn't problems there, but a lot of times it would work itself out, and you know, it would just make that family unit even stronger. Which, when kids experience something like that, I guess what it translates to in the long time is like, well, there's problems. We're going to have to work it out. My mom and dad worked it out, so I guess I'll have to work it out. Whereas, where it's just kind of, well, if it doesn't work and you just go your separate ways. A lot of the people that I grew up with that. Particularly the girls, I noticed, that grew up in single mom family or whatever, they usually end up becoming single moms themselves. Again, I don't think the apple falls far from the tree for a lot of people. Now, that said, out of all the single moms, because I used to live in a building which was 24 units, and there was only 4 guys in the entire building. The rest were all women, and it was a subsidized house and whatever. So how I got in there, I don't know, but I just got lucky. I guess I was a part of the quota because they had to make it not look too obvious. And they're like, okay, well, we have to take on some males, and you just showed up at the right time. So we'll take 4 of them, and we'll put 20 other females in there. And then there was a couple of single moms and stuff like that. And out of the, I think, 4 or 5 single moms that were in there, I don't even think, I think there might have been like 3. Only one of them is what you would call a real go-getter where she wasn't going to raise her kids in, like in poverty and stuff like that. She was working, going to school, still taking care of the baby, whatever. And the dad was still kind of around for the daughter, so to speak. They just didn't live together, that type of thing. So that type of thing. Unfortunately, the daughter would, she died of leukemia, but poor little thing. But that said, both parents, even though they were kind of at each other's throats, they were there for the kid. So that kind of helped out a bit. It gave her a bit of a heads up or a head start. But that said, the rest was all her. Like, she was like Superwoman. She did everything. And she wasn't doing it for herself. I'm sure there's some stuff she was doing for herself, sure. But she was doing it more to get ahead for her daughter, that type of thing. And I don't know, I haven't seen this lady in years, so I don't know if she, if they had any more kids or whatever. But it was just a different thing. So I know this person probably in the long run, through all those hardships, probably fared out okay. And probably would have ended up because she was a really nice lady. She was heart of gold. Well, she was a young lady. Like I think she was like 19, 20, 21, something like that at the time, and really seemed to be the one. I mean, I had I babysat the daughter from time to time. Whatever, and all that type of thing. And I remember her knocking on my door one day. She's like, Reg, she says, I'm going to take Haley out for a little bit. Can you do me a huge favor? She goes, I'll even pay you. She says, what I'm about to ask you is going to be really gross. She goes, they bought a bunch of goldfish, those beluga goldfish? Well, they died. And they didn't want the daughter to notice, because you know what kids are like that. So like a couple of days went by and these things were starting to fester and blow up. It was so gross. I couldn't even flush one down the toilet. He kept coming back out, the poor bastard. Oh, it was so gross. But anyway, I digress. But anyway, so I got rid of they dumped the aquarium water. I dumped it outside. It was a huge aquarium. It was amazing. I had to get my other friend, he was nearly puking going down the stairs as we're taking this like sloppy dead fish water down. It's like, I'm like, I can't dump it in the bathtub. I said it'll gross out the apartment. You'll smell it in all the units. Because once you broke that crust on the top, oh yeah, it was really gross. So anyway, I did that. We dumped it out. We brought it back or whatever, and stuff like that. And I remember a couple of days after the ex or whatever came by. He's like, dude, thanks. He says, you don't know how much I appreciate that. He says, he goes, that's stuff I should be doing, but we're not together or whatever. I said, no problem, eh? But you could still tell that there was that dedication to the girl, like to the little girl. So it was about the they didn't work out, but the family worked out. So how does feminism play into all this? Well, what it is that the thing is that who gets custody and stuff like that, all that stuff, yeah, it's been talked about. But I think the underlying thing out of these two people, just using them as an example, is even though it didn't work for them, they didn't rely on the system to bat one another over the head. They didn't go for child custody or like anything like that. She mainly stayed with the mom for the most part. Even the dad was like, okay, well, I'm working all the time anyway. As long as I can see my kid, I don't care, And they worked it out. They worked it out that way, even when they would fight like cats and dogs. They never resorted to the court system, which is something that actually I think probably worked out for the better for the two of them. Because, again, they probably both ended up with somebody else later on and probably ended up with families later on and saying, okay, like, for example, I thought the girl was fantastic, but that's as a friend. I don't know what she would have been like to be in a relationship with, maybe. And I thought the other guy, I thought he was fantastic too. I was like, this guy's like pretty stand up. Like, how could it not work between these two people? But you never know, right? You just never know that. But I can imagine out of that, they probably, broke ties after the daughter died. But they probably, on the rebound, would have made better decisions on, okay, well, we're not going to rush into this, we're not going to rush into that. Because they are, looking back now, they were both pretty young. I mean, early 20s, right? And again, I don't pry in people's relationships, so I don't know how they got together. I don't know how long they were together before they had the kid, that type of thing. So maybe it was just something that was just rushed too fast at too young of an age. We could chalk it up to that. But they still handled it like adults when it didn't work. So I think that in the next one, they would probably end up in relationships where a lot more stable. You never know. Some people would tend to repeat their same mistakes over and over again, but who knows, right? But I just thought it was an interesting observation. So they worked it out. Now, that said, there was another girl. She had 3 kids. And, I mean, she was going to be a welfare mom the rest of her life. I mean, she was a nice girl. She was an excellent cook, ever like that. She was a sweetheart. But she made a bad choice on not one guy, but two guys. So she had two kids with one and one kid with another. And she was young, too. Like, I don't even think she was 20. On her third kid, I think she might have been max 21, 22. Like, I mean, she was already on her third kid by that time. So I think it was just, but then, you know, she was talking about how her mom raised her, and it was just her and her sister or something like that. And again, you know, her sisters, you know, like she'd talk about her sister, and it kind of, you know, like I still love her, but she pisses me off because she's got this, and she's got the family, and she's always talking about, well, you know, she should pick better men and stuff like that. And her sister, I think, was the older sister, and was probably right. You know, was probably right. And, you know, type of thing. But I think it was just a bit of a resentment that, you know, it worked for her, but it didn't work. It worked for her sister, but it didn't work for her. So her sister found a loving relationship and whatever. And I never met the sister, so I don't know. But that's the impression I got, because it was always kind of like that sibling rivalry type of thing going on. But for her, the problem is she was more into, and she said it to me several times. She's like, "Oh yeah, Red." She goes, "Yeah, for me, I only really care about the kids and stuff like that." And I said, "Yeah," but I said, "It's, you know." And I remember her little boy, Cody, oh my God, this kid was bad. Like, not evil bad, but just like freaking Burt Raccoon meets Calvin and Hobbes mischievous. Just, you know, just into everything. Dennis the Menace kind of kid. And this kid was like 2.5, 3, whatever. Just a complete terror. Just anything he can get into, he would do. But I noticed, though, and I, you know, a few times, because I remember, I forget what he did, but anyway, it worked out. He stuffed a bunch of stuff in the toilet bowl, flooded one apartment down to the other. Actually, it was to the girl that I was just talking about previously. And it was kind of funny because they didn't get along because, I don't know why, I guess because the kids were, you know, her daughter was smaller and the kids were always, he was always making so much noise that it would wake up her daughter. Can you keep your kid quiet? You're waking up my kid, and, you know, all that stuff. I don't think they hated each other, but it was just, they would annoy each other from, you know, one apartment to the next. But I think what the straw that broke the camel's back was when the toilet bowl flooded over and little Cody stuffed, I don't know what he stuffed in there, a G.I. Joe or a truck, whatever it was, and then he kept flushing the toilet. Kept flooding over. I mean, to him, he would have been, you know, hey, look, a waterfall, that's cool. It just went down the wall. Oh, yeah, it was like nightmarish plumber damage. You know, plumbers had to come in and they had to replace parts of the wall and everything. Oh my God, it was crazy. But in that situation, both times, both girls called me one after the other. Oh my God, there's water flooding in. Can you help me? No, there's no other man around. You know, that type of thing. And I tried such and such. He wasn't there. You know. So basically, both women resorted to calling all the men in the building. You know, knocking on the door or whatever. And I just happened to be the guy that was home. So the thing about that is, it's like, that's how the system fails you. Because in times of crisis, you don't have that there. Now, the guys that she was going out with or whatever, one guy was kind of around, but he was a drunk and alcoholic, real bad influence for the kid. But again, yes, this guy's a jerk or whatever, you could say that. But she chose him to have the kids with. Now, that said, I just kind of noticed her as the type of person to be really bad at picking men. Because they don't fully recognize the consequences of having 3 kids raised without a father. And I always noticed, like with little Cody, when I'd come by, he'd be doing something bad, like, you know, like kids do. He'd grab a marker and start going, you know, running around the walls with it or whatever. I'd be like, Cody, you shouldn't do that. And he'd look at me kind of like, okay, does he approve or not? You know, and then he'd go to do it again. And it's like, Cody, don't do that. Okay, you know. My nephew's the same way. My sister-in-law yells at him whenever he picks up. My nephew does this. He runs around, oh, a rock, and he picks up. He just chucks it. For some reason, he's throwing like 2 rocks at my van. I don't know why. I don't think he does it on purpose. I think he just, kind of like, here, cool rock, you know. And he throws it. And it happened to hit. One time was at the store, the other time in the yard, and one hit the tire and whatever. And they're like, she's like, Aiden, don't do that. So he goes to pick up another rock, and then my brother says, Aiden, don't do that. And he does this, closes his eyes, kind of like, I have my eyes closed. Okay, yell at me, you know. And my brother's like, don't matter if you have your eyes closed, you know, you don't pick up the rocks and throw them. You know how kids are, right? Like, he's 3 now, so he's got the terrible 2s and terrible 3s, so, but he's a good kid. And then, of course, you know, he goes running down the road there, and I had to chase him there, and that was a big game there, and whatever. But again, little boys, little girls, they tend to listen to the male authority. And when they don't have that, the next thing you know, you have your little boys dressing in dresses, and your little girls, trying to be men, because they don't know how to regulate themselves. They don't know what the role models are. They don't have that. So they have to explore to find balance, but which usually leads to more destabilization for the kid. And that's how feminism kind of destroys, it really backfires on women. I know I'm going on a bit long now. So what are that's just some of the things that I've noticed. But the women that always had the boyfriends or whatever, with no kids, they usually seem to be pretty happy. Yeah, there was a few of my friends that were like cats and dogs, male and I loved them both. Like, they were both good people type of thing. But it was just like, you guys are just toxic for each other. And then when they split up, they find somebody else. It's like, okay, well, I know what I don't want. And then they find somebody, and they've been together, this girl and guy, well, she's now married with a couple of kids, and I don't know if he has any kids or not, but, he's been with the same girl for, I haven't seen him in years, but probably 10, 15 years he's been with the same girl. So it's like, they found what works because they were honest with each other, that type of thing. Now, the ex of him, both of them, again, I got along really good. As people, again, it's like, okay, I'm really good friends with you. I'm really good friends with you. Why don't you guys get along? Because you both seem awesome to me. You know what I mean? And she's like on her third or fourth kid or whatever, just putting through karate and doing all that stuff. And it's like, you just read the Facebook post from time to time. Oh, the husband, I don't like to use people's names because sometimes they don't want to be mentioned, right? Oh, brought me this today and it was so sweet. And, oh, well, it's time for, such dad time with the kids. It's like, should I trust him alone, or are my kids going to be like jumping off the roof or something like that, trying to fly because my dad, like the wacky dad. But you could tell it's done out of such love and admiring that, oh, look at what my husband is doing with my kids kind of thing, And there was two coworkers actually. I think they're on their second or third kid. And again, like when I was working, I was like, don't get me wrong, I really liked the guy. I thought he was freaking hysterically funny, and I'm like, she was definitely more a family kind of girl, a very, very nice girl, whatever. And I'm like, these two, he's a party animal, whatever. I cannot possibly see this guy settling down. He's like dad of the year all the time. You just read the Facebook posts. Okay, yeah, most people's life are not as awesome as they make it out to be in Facebook, But I get that. But the case in point is you can witness patterns and stuff like that. And I tend to be, me and my old friend Pablo used to do this all the time. We'd be sitting there kind of like philosophers and thinkers, sitting on a park bench, people watching, and try to, just with a person saying word, trying to figure out what kind of character these people were. And we came down to that there was 13 types of characters on the planet. That's it. No more, no less. That's all we found. And everywhere you go, no matter maybe different names and different faces, but you will meet the same characters over and over again. It's just, that's why I always hear people say, I know a guy just like that. You remind me of a guy just like that back home. He's just like you. Yeah. And you'll find this everywhere. And whatever. It's these personality traits. Yeah, there's the individual aspect of it. But there does seem to be a pattern there where people tend to fall into a category of personality. And we used to, by doing this, it helped us to analyze different things. And we'd philosophize. We'd start off with the question of why. And it would turn into this 4-hour conversation. It was while we were playing chess, like that type of thing. So that's kind of what we did, It was like, thinking stuff all the time. And I remember, again, he had 2 little sisters and his brother or whatever. And of course, like anything, like any teenage boy, it's like, little brother, leave us alone. But whatever. And then, then of course, with my little brother or whatever, he's not little anymore. But I had a field day with my brother. All I had was the Big Brother's Handbook. And it took him forever to realize that there was no such thing as the Big Brother's Handbooks. I was just using that. I'd grab him in the middle of the winter time while he was playing video games, pick him up, throw him off the deck into the snow, whatever. And he'd be like, "Why'd you do that?" I said, "Said to do with the Big Brother's Handbook." "Can I see it?" "Well, no, it says the Big Brother's Handbook. I can't show you." "Oh, okay." And this went on for years. And then finally one day, I think he was about 15, he was sitting there and goes, "Reg?" I think it was when he was having one of his first beers with me or whatever. He goes, "Reg, there's no Big Brother's Handbook, is there?" I just howled. I was like, "You're now a man." Good times. Oh yeah, and stuff like that. Whatever, but it built a closer bond. That type of thing. And same with my sister and I now. Again, my whole family's close, and they're close because we were together and had to work out our problems. My sister and I, fought like cats and dogs when we were kids. But Mom would intervene and, okay, you go to your room, you go to your room. So if we didn't get along, we both ended up in punishment, right? So that was that thing. And then when dad gets home, you're really in trouble. Okay, well, whatever. So then it's like, okay, well, either we work this out or whatever, learn moderation, or we're going to be both like grounded all the time type of thing. You know what I mean? Like never anything bad, but just kind of whatever. So we learned consequences through that. You learn that through family. And the more broken up the family, the less consequences I think are available for you to learn. Like you go to a certain point where you get into trouble, but you don't learn how to correct it. And that's what I noticed with a lot of these single family parents is that, and the statistics show that the kids don't do as well in broken home families. So we know that third wave feminism uses massive government to support these single moms and stuff like that, but it keeps them in a rut. So it cheats them out. Now, there's also single fathers out there too. It's overwhelmingly single mothers rather than single fathers. Now, that type of thing it'd be nice to see less of both, right? That you would see more. But there's only one solution to that, and that's Family Nation Future, what I keep promoting. And the reason why I promote that is because, again, I'm not saying I had the best family life in the world, but I would trade it with nobody. And if your family was even better than mine, I'd be even more happy for you. That type of thing. Because every family goes through its trials and tribulations and has its problems. But families endure better. They are even showing that lower income families, really impoverished families, do better as a family unit than single parent families, regardless of income. Now, obviously, a family that has good income and a solid family does the best. But even at that, if you compare it to single parent families or separated parent families, it really does affect the kids. So if you affect the kids, you affect the future. That's the way you have to look at it. So Family Nation Future is the key. So where does feminism really go wrong? Well, pick the way, right? But how do you correct it? Well, again, we know what the problems are. Well, what is the correction? What's the common theme? Family endures is the common theme here. That if you have a family unit, mom, dad, stable heterosexual family unit, same-sex marriage. We're not going to bring that stuff in the same-sex couple families. I'm not going to bring that in. That's a separate issue. Right now, we're just talking heterosexual couples. Mom and dad, that type of thing. If that is the key theme of stability to a family, well, what happens when you have a stable family? Well, you're going to have a stable neighborhood if it's full of stable families. What happens if you have stable neighborhoods everywhere? Well, you're going to have a stable city, stable province, stable country. I'm in Canada, so province. So if you're in an area where there's cantons or states, you get the idea. But the key theme here is Family Nation Future. So with the strong bond of family, you can create culture and values that promote your culture and the nation, and then with that you get a future out of it. So Family Nation Future. So rather than people challenging feminism as just get rid of it, we need to replace it with something better. And this is where men, I think, can step up more. Because usually, again, you have to look at, yes, this is oversimplistic to look at, but in the overgeneralized role of nature, women are the nurture, caregivers, and men are the provider protectors. And these gender roles are very, very important. And no matter how much you try to pretend gender doesn't exist and roles don't exist, they will always resort to the meme. Again, the most super independent girl, and that's trying to do the most for her kid, and a kind of girl that kind of make bad partner decisions. Both resort to the meme of calling a man when the goldfish. Goldfish are dead in the fish bowl, or the little boy keeps flushing the toilet with his truck, or his GI Joe stuck in there flooding out the apartment buildings. They call the man right away. It's instinct that makes them do it. Not I'm just going to call my next door neighbor, see what she's going to say. No, it's who's going to be the most likely to do this, and it's instantaneous thought. They don't even realize they're thinking it. It's going to be, we're going to get a man. Let's get a man. Let's get a man. Why? Because they're looking for provider, protector. The incident was, bad, mischievous child with too close to a toilet bowl, clogged toilet bowl. Creating, oh my God, what a disaster that was. Now why would they get that impression? Why would they get that impression? Why would women resort to that meme, not realizing it? Well, how did this video start? Did you see all the crap I did today? Okay, yeah, I'm lazying it down right now. But, okay, I cut the grass this morning. I cleared out, like that cement mixer, was growing in the ground. The damn thing weighs like 200 pounds. Plus, it's got one flat tire and the other one's completely busted. I had to drag that damn thing out of there. It weighs a gazillion pounds. It's awkward. It's hateful. Whatever. I got a lawnmower that's hateful that will start sometimes, run sometimes, and other times throws out your back and your sciatic nerve. And other times it does okay. But that's just what I did today, being lazy. You know what I mean? Women see that. In maybe, yes, even with the feminization of men, they don't realize it. Yeah, they see the feminized man, whatever, and they're not impressed by that at all. But subconsciously, that particularly like right now, like in Ottawa there, which is about 100 clicks from here, the capital of Canada, there's 2 seasons in Ottawa, winter and construction, right? And right now we're in construction season. And everywhere you go, you see men, men who die at typically a rate of 19 to 1 on the job site. And you understand why, because there's cranes everywhere, and on these cranes they've got concrete, they've got anything that would, the lightest thing that could drop on you can flatten you out like a pancake. We're talking steel beams that weigh 10,000 pounds. You've got these big cement, which is really cool now. You don't have to do this is why they're able to build buildings so fast. But basically, these cement trucks that have these big tubes, they go up and they could pour cement on the 15th floor. But if you're not careful with the crane and taking the cement out and dumping it, you could bury a guy and kill him. And when you see it, it's impressive in the sense that, yeah, it's dirty work and all that. But you see it, it's impressive because it's like those guys are just working around it because it's the way the job's got to get done. There's no fear to it, whatever. Women might not subconsciously recognize the value in that, but they will remember it in a time of reality of crisis where I need a man to do this because it will just resort to the meme. He's going to save me. He's going to do that. Now, I know some women will get mad at saying that, oh, you misogynistic, whatever, but you're going to do it. If the car flips over or a bus flips over and it's on fire, trust me, you're going to hand your baby to the man. You're not going to hand, if the woman's closer, you might do it. But if there's 2 hands out, one's a woman, one's a man, you're going to hand your baby to the man. It's going to be subconscious. You're going to do it. Why? Because it is the natural role of men to be providers, protectors. So that's what we need to nurture. We live in a society where, the role models are pimps and hoes, on popular cultural TV. And consequence-free actions of, multiple sexual partners, all that stuff. I'm not saying that you can't live that life. I don't care if you do, as long as you understand that it has actions. So sure, a woman can go out and sleep with as many men as she wants, but the consequence to her actions, she could get pregnant, and now the consequences of her action, it could create a single-parent family and disadvantage the children of that family. I'm not saying that mom won't love their kids as much as anything, but you're taking away an advantage of that child of having 2 stable parents. Even 2 relatively unstable parents. Even slightly dysfunctional families that are 2-parent families still do better, and poorer families still do better than single-parent, more wealthy families. There's psychological of it as well. So there's only one real way that changes. I can guarantee you, no matter how much policy they bring out, no matter how much, and there's a right way to go about it and the wrong way to go about it. Nobody really knows the exact right way because this is something that's a new learning curve. But men need to be nurtured. One suggestion I heard where they started here in Canada, they tried to pay women to have kids. It didn't work. It flopped, right? So much for like the first 3 kids, and then after that you're on your own. And they tried it, and it didn't really work. But there's one lady, she suggested something really interesting. She said, why don't they pay the men to have kids? They can't have the kids themselves, but give them the money as incentive. If you're going to have children, and the money's going to go to the man. Well, the man's going to spend it all on the kids and the wife anyway. There's no doubt about that. But it might say for men to, most men will say, I can't have kids because I can't afford them. Okay, so you're going to help me raise my kids? Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. And obviously it's not going to be my kids, it's going to be our kids, the husband and the wife. So it's the 2-step, like I said. And if we promote men as role model fathers, the masculinity that comes out of that is so stable. Again, family men don't go to war or don't create war. They create stability. Alienated men, again, I can use ISIS as a as a thing. It's all because men always need a cause in their life, and if their cause isn't family, nation, future, it's war, death, and destruction, right? It's just the way history works. It resorts to the mean. Men won't even, like right now, there's men out there that can't wait to get into it with the jihadists in Europe. They're looking forward to that fight. I know. I hear from them on my channel all the time. They can't wait to kill those guys. Some of them are family men, but most of them are single men. And you could just know by the way they talk that, because it's anybody asking for war is somebody that's bored or somebody that's doesn't have a value beyond themselves. And I'm not saying that they're selfish. I'm saying that they don't realize that, like they're looking for this cause, but it's a false cause, kind of like how feminism is a false cause, where when they understand the value of patriarchy, what happens is that they understand that it's not about them. There's a reason why men die at a rate of 19 to 1. Most of these guys that are dying at a rate of 19 to 1 on their jobs are family men. These are probably, I would probably guess if we were to look at a statistic, if they had the statistic available, we would find most of the guys that die on the job are not single men. Some of them might be. I mean, on the, like there's certain jobs that, single men are going to do, because it's so dangerous that it's like, okay, well, like you look at crab fishermen or lumberjacks, two of the highest death occupations you can get. I mean, again, think about it. You're using a chainsaw. Now, most of them use feller bunchers, stuff like that, but you still have to use a chainsaw at some point. Let's take a motor, rev it to the point where it's about to explode, get a bar and put a razor-sharp chain on it that can zip through logs in, in seconds, and just hope it doesn't kick back at you and cut you in half, or have a tree fall on you. Again, I know people that have been killed by falling trees in the bush, again, trying to provide for their family, So when you look at it like that, it's a different cause, but when it comes to the war, a lot of the guys are younger, so most of them don't have families when they go to war, but they're looking for the cause. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that there are no, veterans out there that don't have families. There's a lot, but I'm pretty sure the majority of the guys you see going, that's why they're going, because they're not tied down to a family. Which tying down to a family is not a bad thing, because that then keeps people stable. It keeps the nation stable. It keeps them from wanting to go to war and stuff like that. Again, look at all these jihadists. 90% of them are not family men. These are fighting-age, alienated men. Yes, it manifested into this ideology or whatever, but the meme is the same. They're going to war because they've got nothing better. They're looking for a cause. So they found a false cause. Whereas if we promoted stable masculinity, rather than try to eradicate masculinity like the feminists want to do, promote that. But the women aren't going to promote it. It's not their role to promote solid masculinity. It's our role, men. Again, provider, protector. We need to protect them from themselves. Tell these feminists, no, we're not doing this for you. It's again, the only reason why third wave feminism exists in the modern world is because we allow it. That's it. It's literally that simple. The day men say no, we're not doing that anymore, it's gone, and women will follow alike. But the thing is there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. If you do it just out of spite and hatred to take down this, it becomes a supremacy movement. The MGTOW isn't a supremacy movement, but the men's rights groups are becoming a supremacy movement the same way third wave feminists have become a supremacy movement. So we got to do away with the supremacy and work towards unity. And you can only do that through family, nation, future. That's why I keep repeating it. Now, for some of you who get it, you get it. But the thing is a lot of women out there are duped into believing that men don't want families. They're also duped into believing that the more sexual partners they have, the more liberated they are, that type of thing. They don't learn, again, they can learn to make the mistake, but there's nobody to help correct the mistake so they can learn and better themselves from it. Again, studies are now showing that women that have more than one kid in a stable relationship are much happier than these single cat women. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. So a lot of women with feminism have replaced the family with cats, refugees, and puppy dogs and stuff like that, rather than, and again, it's a false cause. It won't really bring them happiness. It won't really bring them, I'm not saying taking care of kids is an easy job. It's not. But it's definitely, they lose the merit of what a stable family is. And that's one thing that the patriarchy has never talked about in a good light, that it is a stable thing. Again, even my dad pointed this out. He goes, when I was younger, my mom, she worked from time to time, but she didn't have to work. She didn't have to work. My dad made enough to cover it for all of us. And again, my mom passed away a couple of years ago, but like even my mom understood that. Like, like she'd work for a bit, and then if it got too much, she could quit because she always knew my dad could. He's never going. Like my dad said when I asked him, he just turned 65. He said, "Dad, you going to retire soon?" Ha! That was the official answer. I'll retire when I'm dead. Ha! Why? Because the grass needs cutting. Got to get the cement mixer out of it. It's a guy thing. Either you understand it or you don't. It's like, and I mean, I know I'm on the Work Till I Die program, so I'm just trying to make work as enjoyable for myself by working by, like again, the YouTube thing has been a blessing for me. I'll ride it till I can't, that type of thing. But I do also try to impress on people, male or female, do things for yourself, that type of thing. It isn't always about the resources or how much you can consume or how much you can wealth you can get. A lot of it, best life experiences, is really about the bonds you make. And for example, next weekend, I think we're having our annual fish fry. My uncle's going to put on. Woohoo, Arctic char. I think this year's going to be pickerel. And we might even have a roast pig there and caribou and all that stuff. And I'm going to have probably, I have so many relatives and cousins and stuff like that. Like I'm going to the point, if you've been following this channel, you'll know what I mean. I knock on a random door and happens to be a cousin I never met before, like last week in Otter Lake there where the Corvette was there. Hi. Oh yeah, by the way, we're related. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Nice to meet you. It's like, okay. I got so many family, like cousins and stuff like that, it's to the point where I got to number some of them because I just can't remember. Like I remember the face, but it's like the name. It's like, and it's so bizarre, and something you don't see all the time. But I do like it when I have the big family shindigs, and that's when one thing you notice whenever the big family gets together, whether it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever. There's a couple of, like my nephew, he's the prince of this area. My other cousin, her son is the other prince. Now my other cousin has a daughter, and she's a prince. But the triangle is reversed now. There's now less kids than what there is. Like the family isn't expanding, it's contracting, which is bad because the future for them is like this, the family land and stuff like that. They might not be able to maintain it for themselves, which will divide them up a bit. But right now, the family's big and everything like that. And as soon as the babies show up, all the women are like, "Oh my God, my little cousin, she's so cute," and whatever. Oh, he's growing so much. Oh my God, whatever. And you just see all the women just. I mean, look at when somebody posts a baby picture of their newborn baby. All the women on there just again resort to the meme. Oh, I don't want to ever have kids. I'm never having kids. I'm never. Oh my God, this baby's so cute, so adorable. The meme comes in. Because it's a natural response. I mean, almost all the baby things you'll see, like on Facebook of somebody's baby, I'll give it a thumbs up. Oh, congratulations, there you go. But the women, it's like 10 comments. Oh my God. Oh, are you good? Oh, you should do this. Oh, I can't wait to meet her. It's a resort to the meme, and women are still like that. The problem is the media will portray it as if it's not. So we need to change that ideology. If we can't do it through the mainstream system, we have to do it by example. And the best way by example is Family Nation Future and men promoting solid family. Now, some people are going to call me a hypocrite because I don't have my own family, or my own like wife and kids, that type of thing. Okay, fair enough. I missed the boat, whatever. Things could still happen, but at 43, 44, however old I am, that ship is sailing. And the thing is I'm also looking at it from the point of view, it's probably bad for me, but it's worse for women. Because a woman at 43 with no kids right now, it's pretty much not going to happen for you. And if it does, it's going to be, it could be dangerous for you, that type of thing. So your career, really most people are never happy in their careers as much as they're going to be. I mean, everybody looks forward to going home from work. Very few people look forward to going to work. Most people look forward to going home from work. What does that tell you? Regardless of how well it pays. You know what I mean? Regardless of how well it pays. So that said, what's meeting you at home that's better, right? Is it a bunch of cats? Or is it some loving kids that are going to show you, "I made yesterday, Mom, Dad, look what I made. No, look, you're not looking, look. No, look. You're going to miss it, look, no, look." It's like in your face, I can see it. "No, but you're not looking at it right. Look, I made this." "What is it?" "You can't tell?" It's like, yeah. Case in point, there's my nephew's drawing, or Christmas drawing there. The names were written by his mom and dad, but pretty much all the other fine, handy artwork was him. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So he goes, "Oh, yeah. It's like, yeah, look what I made. It's like, oh, yeah. And he walks in, and he'll look at it and go, "Aiden," because that's his name. Like, he knows he did it, Like, he's like, "Oh, yeah, he remembers that." But he did that with his mommy and daddy, right? So, and that's for grandma and grandpa and Uncle Jeju, which they call me Jeju. That's what my brother used to call me instead of Reg. It was Jeju. You know, I don't know how he got that, but yeah, and stuff like that. And so, you know, Nina. You know, my sister's name is not Nina, but it's the way my brother used to pronounce it. So it just kind of stuck. So that type of thing. But the thing is it bonds the family, and it's a very positive model because you can move through tough times a lot stronger as a family unit than you can by yourself. So men need to promote that, and I think the women will just gravitate towards that. I can always notice, again, when I'm around large groups of women, whether it's in a workplace or in a private setting or whatever, they tend to act differently towards the men when there's less men around, depending on what the situation is. Like I'll use the baby shower, for example. I went to a baby shower, and it's like, you know, like the women are there having their fun or whatever, but they tend to, you know, be a little more impressed that there's a guy there. It's like, oh, well, you showed up, oh, whatever. You know, they'll throw a few pot shot jokes at you or whatever, but you can tell that, oh, well, he cares. You know what I mean? That type of thing. He cares. It's great to do. For me, I'm always a supporter of the community as much as I can, not financially, except not that wealthy, but, you know, like that type of thing. They do look at it, okay, this is the stand-up guy because he goes here, that type of thing. At the work, again, as soon as, even some of the girls that I did work with that were quite competent, they would always go to the guy who they thought was the guy that knew the most. And, there, you know, I happened to be one of them. There was two other guys, 2 or 3 other guys that were, you know, whenever, you know, when all else fails, ask those guys, they'll fix it. It was very rarely a girl would go to another girl to fix something. You know, it was almost always they would go to the guy. And the same girls would probably 9 times out of 10 complain when customers would come in and naturally walk to a guy. Even the women would always go to a guy before they would go to a girl, even if the guy didn't know. And there was one girl in particular, she was a really good employee. There was no doubt about that. And she was smart. She did learn well. She you know, she would stick around, learn the answer, whatever. And it would be bad because guys would walk in or girls would walk in, they'd walk right to you, and walk right to me when she's right there, and like she'd be even closer, and they'd go around her to get to me. And she's like, I hate it when they do that. Why do they do that? Sexist. And I said, well, what it is, and before I could even get the words out of my mouth, a guy walked in, asked one of the female employees about something. He goes, oh, I don't know, I'll get a guy. And that's what she said, right? And so, of course, I ended up with the customer. And then you could just see my fellow coworker there. She was like, oh. And I said, that's why. I said, because the guy's just cutting to the chase. He knows you're going to come and get me anyway. So it's like, you know, I know it's not nice, whatever, but that's just reality, you know. So, yeah, women are always going to have to deal with that. That's just something that they're always going to have to deal with it. So they might as well make peace with it and not take it personally. That said, men are always going to have to deal with that. So there's no use complaining about it. Well, they should pull their own weight too. Well, sometimes they can't. You know, and as a man, I say that not with spite or ego or misogyny or whatever. It's just I know the limitations of a lot of women. Some women, again, you're putting this idea in their head that anything a man can do, a woman can do better, backwards on a skateboard on a Sunday. I get that. But when it comes down to it, there's a lot of things that women just can't do better. But I put credit where credit's due. Like, again, when I get on the bus and I see a female bus driver, I'm not, oh my God, she's going to get us killed. No, she can handle that bus. She made the grade. Fine. You know, I'm okay with that. But I know when that bus breaks down, she's calling the maintenance guys to come get it. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. I just know that. It might not be the, you know, and then there's always the exception to the rule, that type of thing. But to, you know, a stable male society will look at that and say, well, if there's, because guys do like women that are competent, that can do things for themselves. Don't kid yourself. We don't, you know, there are guys out there that do like to cater to the woman, don't get me wrong. But it is nice when they could just go and do their own damn thing and not get out of your hair too, you know. And then when you get together, you have quality time, whatever, and she's not clingy or whatever, that type of thing. And same with guys, you don't want to be clingy. I find relationships that, whether the male or female are clingy, they always fail. But with that, one thing you do notice is that when men and women are in the same room together, the natural tendencies of gender do take over. Even with people that are semi-confused about gender and stuff like that, to me there's no confusion. There's really 2 genders. And I said there might be possibly 3 with hermaphrodites, but even at that, scientifically speaking, and I didn't know this until somebody else brought it up, even hermaphrodites will have, like, if they're born with 2 sets of genitals, 1 set of genitals is just there for cosmetic. So really, technically, that they're not really both. They're going to side one way or the other. So if they're a hermaphrodite, meaning they've got both sets of genitalia and traits of both, there's going to be dominant on one side, and the other side's just going to be kind of non-functioning. So that type of thing. And that I thought was interesting. So again, it makes a case for genders do exist. But when you're telling people that gender roles don't exist and stuff like that, trust me, these guys that are overly feminized, they don't get very far in life. Yes, everybody likes them, whatever, and they don't. And again, it doesn't have to be completely the opposite way, overly macho or whatever. That doesn't even really make a difference that much either. But the guys that are more just, they're manly men. They do tend to fare better with women because they come off maybe not authority, like a stronger authority, but they come off more confident. And the more confident a man, not arrogant but confident a man is, the more they want to follow that guy, because what tends to happen is it's that leading by example. It's that sense of security that they're going to feel by that. And again, I've had several women tell me this too. Reg, I feel safe around you, and like that type of thing. And when they say that, it's because it's not so much that, okay, this guy's going to fend off 20 attackers or something. No, it's because they're like, okay, he seems to have a solid decision making process. He seems to be a stable person, which is not. It's a nice compliment, that type of thing. Whereas even at that, the girls that so-called go for the bad boys or whatever, again, the consequences of a bad boy is a single mother, that type of thing. But the thing is how do you correct that? Well, we point out the single mother is not good or bad. That it's not. You can't look at it as good or evil. That doesn't really help anybody. People make choices. What you need to impress upon people, whether you're male or female, is when you make choices, there's consequences to the choices. And if men are pointing this out, and if we, particularly are teaching men that, you have consequences to your actions as well. So, and responsibilities. We don't teach that to the men. They're obviously not going to follow through on it, and they'll become deadbeat dads or whatever. But if we keep teaching women that, sexual liberation is to, mate with anything that you move, well, the consequences of that are not just about you, but the kids you may have, because you have to understand the way the feminists want it is to destroy the family. Have sex with as many people as you want, because gender doesn't exist anyway, so it doesn't matter. And if you get pregnant, don't worry. We have Planned Parenthood, which I don't know why they call it Planned Parenthood, because there's no parenting that takes place from it. It's basically assassination of babies. I'm going to grab the pliers, jab it up your uterus, jab the kid in the back of the head, yank it out, and there you go. You killed the fetus, and you've got yourself an abortion. And it might sound crude, but that's what they do. So there's no use sugarcoating it that. Again, sometimes some of the anti-abortion people, I'm not anti or for. I'm more anti-abortion than pro-abortion. Again, who should pay for it, whatever. But I'm also, consequences of an abortion leads to Great Depression in some women. To a point, some of them never get over it. And I'd rather, mistakes are going to happen. You can't save everybody, but we can point out these scenarios where, yes, your consequences have actions, or actions have consequences. This is what it might lead to. And a lot of time, a little education goes very far. But if you instill it in the men first, the women will just follow anyway. Women are followers by nature. They're more inward-looking. Men are more outward-looking. So we really have to promote that in men, which is really hard when men are so alienated in this day and age through the feminist stuff. And you got your MGTOWs and your men's rights movements and stuff like that. So you really want to kind of pick it out so that, we're bypassing that. Like I bypass the feminism thing. I don't put up with it. That type of thing. And if you're in an area where you could lose your job for, saying stuff against feminism, get another job. Get out of the system. It's not as hard to get out of as you think. It's just you got to think a little bit differently to do it. But more importantly, if you promote healthy manhood, healthy masculinity, the women are going to gravitate towards that anyway. They don't just, on instinct, women will gravitate towards wealth. Because, again, they have more to lose if they pick a bad mate. That we have to be honest about. Because if they're stuck with the kid, that's the type of thing. For the man, he has to think about his wealth a little differently, that, who you share your wealth with has to be somebody stable so that you're not losing your wealth in a custody battle or in alimony and stuff like that. So, men have to be taught to be smarter about it, that type of thing. There are no guarantees in life, but there are stepping stones you can take to, number one, being as honest with yourself, making sure your partner is as honest as possible, making sure you both know what you want out of life, that type of thing, family, nation, future. If you want kids and the other one doesn't, almost everybody I know that was like that That, well, she doesn't want kids. The guy eventually leaves. He doesn't want kids. She eventually leaves. Because you have to be honest about it. Being in a relationship for the sake of being in a relationship, again, I might not be a relationship expert, but I can tell you this. If you're together for anything other than love and family, nation, and future, it pretty much not going to work. Now, some people don't want kids, granted, that's fine. The statistic, I think, goes something like after 8 months of a couple getting together, typically the woman ends up pregnant on average. So this is something to keep in mind, because why? You're going to roll around in the sack a bit if you're in love together. That's just kind of goes hand in hand with relationships, right? So you have to really keep that in mind. That you have to be, actions are always going to have consequences whether you want to deal with them or not, and you'll be forced to deal with them. Now, how you deal with them, with mistakes and stuff made in the past, how you deal with them doesn't predict, but sets the chart for your future. And if we set stable manhood out there, which we're not doing now, we're trying to erase any sort of masculinity, which takes the good and the bad away. But the problem is the really bad masculinity out there, the actual toxic stuff, doesn't give a shit, so it's out there, it's going to stay out there. All we're really taking away is the positive male role models and stuff like that. So we promote pimps and hoes, but we don't promote, strength and brawn and mind, body and soul, and healthy masculinity. We don't do that. But I'm not leaving it up to a bunch of radical feminists to do that. And any man out there saying, well, I'm not going to do it because the system is so stacked, then you're cheating yourself as well. No, we need to do it for ourselves. They can go screw themselves. It doesn't matter. They're not even in the conversation, that type of thing. But if we lead by example, if men lead by example, women will follow, not as a derogatory thing, but as a two-step of man and woman together, family, nation, future. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. So if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation channel. Links down below. Thank you so much to everybody who has. Next to that, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. Be true to yourself. Be true to others. Always do the right thing. And have yourselves a great day. Whew. I think we're in the last heat wave of the summer. It's about 28, 29 degrees, but the humidity's high. It's supposed to get a thunderstorm this afternoon. Well, I've got quite a bit done today. It's amazing how much of a mess you have to make to clean up. I don't know how that works, but it just kind of works like that. Alright, so I'm on a bit of an anti-feminism kick today, and I figured, well, why not make a couple of videos on it? Never a topic that gets dull, right? Just kind of show you some of the stuff I'm up to here. Sparks of the lawn, look at the grass hanging out of it. It's like, it was cutting out fairly okay, and then it just died. I got most of the grass cut. I haven't cut it in about 3 weeks, finally got the darn thing going again. Found the old cement mixer. I got to pile up my wood close to the shed here. I'll get into the feminism thing in a minute. But, this will probably become relative into the video. So this is what I did today. And I still got a lawnmower deck. There's a lawnmower deck growing out of the ground there. I don't know who planted it, but it's growing out of the ground. Went to these freaking bastard-ass, freaking spiky briar brushes. God, I hate those. Plus, I got some shingles. I don't know, the shingles, I guess, are off the roof. I've got to fix that roof. Got all this stuff to do. I got to clean all this out, and then I got to pile all that wood here. Not all of it, but this is where I want to start, so I can move it. And my shed's falling apart. What the hell? I guess I got to fix that too. All right, but anyway, so that's been my day. That's a day of a typical man, I guess. Okay, so how feminism kind of fails women. It really does, and again, it's I know the issue's kind of beaten to death, but there's always so much more that can be said about it. And again, I more want to, rather than just complaining what the problems are, more pose kind of like solutions and stuff. And like anything, I mean, life has its problems. I say no more. Sparta. I call that lawnmower Sparta. It's a good grass killing machine when it starts. But okay, yeah, so life has its problems, and you got to deal with that. But the thing is, okay, we know what most of the problems are with feminism. So how do you fix it? Like, because it has failed women too. It's failed men, it's failed women, failed children, failed the family, failed the nation. It really doesn't work. Some think it is working because they're beneficiaries right now, but they're not benefiting what they could have in its place. It could be something so much better. So anyway, nice and cool in here. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, because again, there's so many other channels out there that cover the batshit craziness of third wave feminism so much better. So rather than going over how it's failed the women and why they should kind of just ditch it, well, what would they be ditching it for? Well, it's going to be a two-step between men and women. I've always said that. I'm always going to say that, and I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly because of the way I grew up. I grew up with a very loving family, mom, dad, brother, sister, and between the siblings, yeah, okay, you rival from time to time, but that's okay. You grow out of it, and you actually learn to love your siblings even more because of the stable mom and dad that were your role models, right? And I'm blessed to have had that. That type of thing. That said, I knew a lot of people that didn't have that. Now, when I was going to school, there was a lot of kids that came from troubled homes that went to school with me. And even at that, the ones that came to school, and studies have shown this too, that came to school that were, okay, their mom and dads were, kind of on the rocks a bit with the relationship. Yeah, the kids suffered, but they were still better off than the single parent families, because they still had two parents, overly competing for their affection, right? So, which had its, drawbacks too. I'm not saying there wasn't problems there, but a lot of times it would work itself out, and it would just make that family unit even stronger. Which, when kids experience something like that, I guess what it translates to in the long time is like, well, there's problems. We're going to have to work it out. My mom and dad worked it out, so I guess I'll have to work it out. Whereas, where it's just kind of, well, if it doesn't work and you just go your separate ways. A lot of the people that I grew up with that. Particularly the girls, I noticed, that grew up in the, single mom family or whatever, they usually end up becoming single moms themselves. Again, I don't think the apple falls far from the tree for a lot of people. Now, that said, out of all the single moms, because I used to live in a building which was 24 units, and there was only 4 guys in the entire building. The rest were all women, and it was a subsidized house and whatever, so how I got in there, I don't know, but I just got lucky. I guess I was a part of the quota because they had to make it not look too obvious. And they're like, okay, well, we have to take on some males, and you just showed up at the right time. So we'll take 4 of them, and we'll put 20 other females in there. And then there was a couple of single moms and stuff like that. And out of the, I think, 4 or 5 single moms that were in there, I think there might have been 3. Only one of them is what you would call, a real go-getter, where she wasn't going to raise her kids in like in poverty and stuff like that. She was working, going to school, still taking care of the baby, whatever. And the dad was still kind of around for the daughter, so to speak. They just didn't live together. That type of thing. So, that type of thing. Unfortunately, the daughter she died of leukemia, but, poor little thing. But that said, both parents, even though they were kind of at each other's throats, they were there for the kid. So that kind of helped out a bit. It gave her a bit of a heads up, or a head start. But that said, the rest was all her. Like, she was like Superwoman. She did everything, and she wasn't doing it for herself. I'm sure there's some stuff she was doing for herself, sure, but she was doing it more to get ahead for her daughter, that type of thing. And I don't know. I haven't seen this lady in years, so I don't know if she, if they had any more kids or whatever. But it was just a different thing. So I know this person probably in the long run, through all those hardships, probably fared out okay. And probably would have ended up because she was a really nice lady. She was heart of gold. Well, she was a young lady. I think she was like 19, 20, 21, something like that at the time, and really seemed to be the one. I mean, I had I babysat the daughter from time to time. Whatever, and all that type of thing. And I remember her knocking on my door one day. She's like, Reg, she says, I'm going to take Haley out for a little bit. Can you do me a huge favor? She goes, I'll even pay you. She says, what I'm about to ask you is going to be really gross. She goes, they bought a bunch of goldfish, those beluga goldfish? Well, they died. And they didn't want the daughter to notice, because what kids are like that. So like a couple of days went by and these things were starting to fester and blow up. It was so gross. I couldn't even flush one down the toilet. He kept coming back up, the poor bastard. Oh, it was so gross. But anyway, I digress. But anyway, so I got rid of they dumped the aquarium water. I dumped it outside. It was a huge aquarium. It was amazing. I had to get my other friend. He was nearly puking going down the stairs as we were taking this like sloppy dead fish water down. It's like I can't dump it in the bathtub. I said it'll gross out the apartment. You'll smell it in all the units. Because once you broke that crust on the top, oh yeah, it was really gross. So anyway, I did that. We dumped it out. We brought it back or whatever, and stuff like that. And I remember a couple of days after the ex or whatever came by. He's like, dude, thanks. He says, you don't know how much I appreciate that. He says, he goes, that's stuff I should be doing.